So this weekend, IndyCar headed back to the Milwaukee Mile, an event that it hasn't seen for the last 10 years, as the last race was in 2014, with the last winner being Sebastian Bourdais. This weekend, back for a doubleheader on Saturday and Sunday. Went to the night race on Saturday. It was a fucking blast. Great race on Sunday. And people were questioning if the fans would even show up to this event, if people were going to buy tickets, if people were going to drive from out of the state. Get fucked. They did show, and it was one of the best races of the season. So after a long and heat-filled afternoon, and definitely after quite a few highlights and a pretty decent NXT race with Louis Foster won and clinched the IndyCar NXT Championship, the sun started to set on the day and the temperatures cooled for race number 1. Scott McLaughlin started off the field as the pace was pretty smooth from the get-go. A whole number of different strategies would come out to play as we saw multiple lanes open up early in the race, and Linus Lundqvist and Santino Ferrucci were pushing the pace early looking for a possible big win on the season, and David Malukas as well, who qualified well in an oval once again, but needing a big result as he's faced some bad luck the last couple of weeks. Colt Nerda was also looking pretty good early in this race, looking for a possible first oval win in the season for him, and Alexander Rossi, just looking for a first big win overall in the last couple of years, was pushing in that top 10. And after some dumbass comments made by the IndyCar CEO, Pato O'Ward looked determined in this race to win and was moving up the field quick. But moving his way up the field was someone we hadn't heard from in a while, suffering some heartbreaks the last couple of weeks and being caught up in some bad situations, using every possible part of the track he could. Connor Daly moved up the field, and after starting in 25th, he was now pushing for the top 10 as he battled with Romain Grosjean and kept moving up and even got into the top 5. He was determined today to get a podium, and it was such a good feel-good story. Then after getting through some pit cycles, Pato O'Ward was able to get the jump, gets into first, and was fighting hard around lap traffic as Colt Nerda and Scott McLaughlin tried to keep pace behind, but it was a bit tougher for them to get around that lap traffic, especially Scott McLaughlin, and that was pretty much the story of the race, as Pato O'Ward pretty much didn't look back by pushing by lap traffic, and chasing in second for most of the race was Will Power, looking to possibly snag a win and get closer to a third IndyCar championship, putting a possible dent in Alex Palou's lead. But the championship leader was looking pretty strong on the day, running possibly into that top 10. Just consistency is the thing for Alex Palou. He is going to have a consistent strategy every single race. He may not win it, but he's going to be up there. One of the few cautions that did occur in this race happened as Marcus Ericsson and Joseph Newgarden went side by side, and both made contact sliding into the wall. Not really anyone you can really blame on this, as it was pretty much just a racing accident, two going side by side, making contact. Just really unfortunate for both of them, especially Joseph Newgarden, who really had a tough weekend that pretty much wasn't his fault. Both were running in the top 3. Both were possibly looking for podium positions as well. So just disastrous day for them in night 1. And Pato O'Ward still held the race lead as the fans just got louder and louder as Santino Ferrucci tried to move up and steal a win on the day and steal everyone's happiness. And Will Power still behind, trying to find a chance to pull out the race win. Santino struggled to get through lap traffic a bit, which allowed both Will Power and Connor Daly to get the jump. Connor Daly getting the jump into that podium position, which really made the fans erupt, and what was going to separate the 3 and the chance for the win was navigating that lap traffic and keeping pace towards the end of the race. And Pato O'Ward pretty much ran away with it as he gets his 3rd big win on the season, Will Power getting a podium position in 2nd and putting a little bit of a dent into Alex Palou's lead, looking for a big win in race number 2. And Connor Daly getting back on the podium position for his best finish, and I would say his best race in IndyCar so far in his career. Put the 78 car into the winner's circle. It was such a good feel-good story on the weekend. The fans loved it. The drivers loved it. I mean, this podium was not only one of the funniest podiums that we've seen in a while, it is one of the best podiums we've seen in a while, and just a great event overall in race number 1. Quick side note, maybe it's not a great idea to shit on the series' most popular driver. Just a thought. And maybe we should get that race in Mexico. That's also just a thought. And maybe we need to get rid of the old ass fucks up top. Once again, just a thought. Yeah, back to the video. Race number 2 started on a more sunny afternoon as it was a beautiful day in Milwaukee as the cars took the field and we waited, and then Alex Palou's car fucking dies. I could not believe my eyes. The championship leader, his car stalls in one of the biggest races of the season as Will Power is trying to make a jump into that possible championship, needing a complete miracle to get to this point, and it is just gifted to him. And the vision was clear for Will Power. All he needed to do was win this race, and he was going to be in the lead heading into Nashville. And then when we were about to go green, the restart is waved off, and someone clearly did get the message as Linus Lundqvist checks up into Marcus Armstrong, who then falls into Joseph Newgarden, who was the pole sitter at the time, looking for a big rebound after the crash the night before, running into the wall and ending his day before his day could even begin. Side note too, shout out to the reporter that was trying to stir unnecessary drama, basically being like,
was that a message to the number 8 car there? You know, Linus Lundqvist. Did you know Linus Lundqvist drives the number 8 car? Yeah, was that a message to him?
Like, Joseph shut that down early, and good on him. We all saw what happened. There was no further, explanation needed. And then when we were finally able to go green in a race that felt like the IndyCar Twilight Zone, Scott McLaughlin held the race lead, trying to make up for falling back yesterday after starting on pole, and teammate Will Power chased by him looking for a big win after his podium yesterday. And Alexander Rossi was also pushing in the top of the field, looking for a first win as well. And bad luck strikes once again as David Malukas, who qualified well in this race, has car issues and loses speed after running in the top 5. Bad luck again, hurting David Malukas. Side note 3, this man may have the worst luck I've ever seen this season in terms of qualifying really well and just having these really dramatic fall-offs. And I guess all good things come to an end, as Pato O'Ward also has issues with his car, as he has electrical issues after the high of yesterday just comes crashing down. How quickly things can change, just race to race. And after Stingray slides, bringing out another caution, McLaughlin gets a jump on Power in the pits, and a bit after we go green, Christian Rasmussen makes contact with Graham Rahal, and Rahal slides into the wall, ending his day. Definitely no hard feelings on that move. And then the flashbacks start coming in from the lost 2010 championship, as Will Power indeed had too much power and loses it spinning on the restart, dropping him in the race. And that was the craziest part about this, as there was no contact or anything like this causing it. He just spun on the restart, completely hurting his championship hopes, as he is now 30 points down in the championship lead heading into Nashville, and basically needing a miracle once again to possibly secure this. And there was just pretty much a battle to end the race, as the focus was no longer on this championship hunt. It was just who was going to get the win today, as Colton Herta and Scott McLaughlin were battling it out, with Scott Dixon always putting his name into the mix, and in this race especially, slowly is working his way up the field and putting himself into that podium position. And Stingray's day ends, unfortunately, as he hits the wall in turn number 2. And we had another restart as Dixon is able to take advantage and get the jump and defend second position from Colton Herta, taking the high side, and Scott McLaughlin was just pushing that race lead. And that's pretty much just how our last 10 laps ran of this race, as Scott McLaughlin gets his second big oval win on the season and 3 wins on the season overall for him. Still in that championship fight, but needing a miracle to pull that one out, and a dominant race win on day number 2. And Scott Dixon gets the record for the most podium positions of all time in IndyCar, and Colton Herta gets 3rd for another podium on the season, and a strong day after a disaster the day before. So overall, I thought that Milwaukee was a pretty successful event for IndyCar as a whole. If you think about it from an event standpoint, then presenting it more like a fair and a big fun atmosphere for fans made the event really successful. It brought the fans out, and I think it's going to bring the fans out for years to come. Milwaukee is an event that IndyCar needs to return to and needs to have on the schedule going forward. It's on for next year for a single event, and I believe extended into 2026 as of a couple days ago. Good on IndyCar. They need to have this race going forward, and big expansions with some of these smaller ovals and maybe some of the returning tracks that we could possibly return to. I feel like sometimes they take steps in the right direction, like with this event, and then completely shoot themselves in the foot, like the other day with their dumbass comments about the race in Mexico and about Pato O'Ward. Now I know that those talks are up and going, I believe now, which is really funny after this race. It was pretty much just the fans and everyone showing IndyCar like, hey, we actually give a shit about this. If you guys could lock in as well and actually give a fuck. Overall, just pretty good weekend. Was a really great atmosphere. I feel like a lot of the fans loved it. I loved it personally. The fair atmosphere was really cool and just a great week. And also some just driver shout-outs from the weekend in general. As much as people like to dislike him, and even I have my criticisms, Santino Ferrucci able to consistently get fourth position in both races. Really good weekend for him overall. He was pushing in the top 3 at times and even trying to push for the race lead. Really consistent pace for him on these ovals especially. Rinus VeeKay gets a top 10 finish in day number 2. Pretty good for him as well. Connor Daly obviously being the big story in race number 1 getting a podium. I mean, everyone loves that. Everyone loves Connor Daly, I feel like. I mean, it's just so good to see. And other than that, pretty decent day overall as we saw pretty much the familiar faces running in that top 10 and on the podiums. I mean, obviously, Scott McLaughlin getting a big win in race number 2. Really going to be pushing for that championship next season. Will Power had a pretty consistent weekend if it wasn't for that spin out in race number 2. Alex Palou fighting through the issues that he had and being Mr. Joe Cool in the car. A really good save for him and for that team as they just were able to maintain their championship lead heading into Nashville in a situation that could have just completely disastrous for the team. That was just the most impressive thing overall, I'd say, for Alex Palou this weekend is just the level of calm that man is at almost all times is just insane. Watching him over the broadcast, I wanted to crack so many jokes at him about how he was just panicking and freaking out. And I can't even make a fucking joke because he's just completely calm talking to his engineers, talking to the other people on his team. It's hard to criticize the guy when he is just completely calm in situations where I feel like a lot of other people would just be completely losing it, myself included. As we head into Nashville in the last race at the Super Speedway, Alex Palou is still your championship leader and holding down the fort pretty well as he just needs to finish decently well at this race and he secures yet again another championship for him in such a short amount of time. Will Power can possibly pull this championship out if he gets a big win in Nashville and disaster strikes again, possibly for Alex Palou. And Scott McLaughlin needs to win this race and needs Will Power and Alex Palou to think it's possibly still the streets of Nashville and turn right, and he can pick up a championship win. And that's pretty much it as we head into the last race of the season of what has been a pretty good season overall for the IndyCar series. I'm sad to see that it's ending already. The off-season is a terrible time. I am always eager for more racing, so I'm definitely going to have to think of some stuff to do in this off-season. Let me know any thoughts down below for this last race. Any big predictions, any thoughts for the championship fight going into this? Do you have Alex Palou or do you have Will Power? Or are you someone that thinks that Scott McLaughlin may pull this out somehow? I don't know. Anything is possible after last weekend, so let me know any thoughts down below. Have an amazing rest of your day, and thank you so much for taking the time every day to watch. Take care.